town board should really be making all the decisions on, nor should the planning board. This is the public. The 8,200 taxpayers, roughly 3,200 parcel owners in the town of Boston, giving input that then the comprehensive plan committee and the outreach committees compile all that information and then work then in conjunction with town board, town planning board, and even a code review committee to either update codes and kind of make, kind of set that roadmap for the next 5, 10, 15 years down the road. That's kind of high level what Justin and Brennan are going to be talking about tonight. So anyway, I just want to introduce myself. I'd like to introduce Justin from Clark. Well, I used to be called Clark Patterson, sorry. I used to rebranding. It was so town engineer Clark Patterson Lee was rebranded to CPM, and then also Brennan is part of the team there. So I'll hand everything over to them, and you guys have the floor.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jason.
You bet.
All right. Let's see if we can. There we go. Always got to figure out which buttons do what. So, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming out. As Jason mentioned, my name is Justin Steinbach. I'm a project manager with CPL. I'm going to be giving you kind of a little bit of the overview of why we're here this evening, what we're going to be talking about, and then the more important part of this whole evening is to kind of get a little bit feedback and discussion with all of you guys as kind of our first round of community outreach as part of this planning effort. That's kind of a brief go through of the agenda. It's pretty much the same as what's on your sheet. I'll give the rest of the introductions, the who's who, who's everyone involved, what's the importance of planning, expand a little more on what the supervisor had mentioned, what kind of goes into the comprehensive plan, a few little bits as far as like some of the community background stuff that we've gotten thus far, and going into kind of the timeline and schedule and whatnot. So again, as far as go back to the who's who, as the supervisor mentioned, this is a community-based plan for all of you guys. So you guys are the ones who are really steering the ship more than anything else. We come in as kind of these technical advisors, helping you to kind of figure out what direction that you guys want to go, maybe helping to facilitate meetings like this, and kind of like getting all the ingredients together to kind of bake a cake, which the cake at the end is going to be your plan. So the town, the community as a whole, you guys are the main players. Along with Brenna and myself from CPL, we also have others on our team. We have Molly Vandera from Molly Vandera Landscape Architect. We also have folks from Prospect Hill Consulting who are helping us with some of the outreach and some of the mapping and demographics. Let's see, I think that kind of takes care of the who's who and such. Oh, the steering committee, that's sure, I forgot to mention them too. So besides the community as a whole, we have a steering committee of about a dozen people or so. Yep. Actually, we've got two committees, which is usually something that doesn't happen a whole lot in a lot of communities where there's a lot of people who are interested in taking part of the process. So we had so many that came into it that we actually kind of divided them up into a main steering committee, which is kind of our sounding board and our primary captains of the ship, so to speak, for the process. They're the ones who we bring drafts to them, have them review them, and kind of vet them and such before they go to the public at large. The steering committee is made up of a variety of folks, whether it be residents, business owners, landowners, folks from the town board, from the planning board, from the various boards. So we got a good mix of folks, a good mix of minds that come to the table for that one. And then we've also got the outreach committee too, kind of a subset of that steering committee, that they're tasked basically with helping us to kind of spearhead some of these outreach activities that we have planned, and kind of be there when we can't. And it helps to kind of put a little bit more ownership of this plan into the community's hands. So it's been a great benefit to us thus far. Whoop, not too far. Okay, So, why are we planning? The whole point of doing a comprehensive plan is to be proactive. Rather than being more reactive and something comes in, whether it be bigger developments or bigger types of land uses that are going to come in and could change the character of the area. Rather than having those come in and then saying, well, what do we do? How do we address this? We're being proactive and reaching out to the community to find out more of what's the vision of the community over the next 8 to 10 years. And that's kind of the time frame for a comprehensive plan. There's no expiration date, so to speak. But usually every 8 to 10 years is the time when you want to update a comprehensive plan. The town's current plan was 2002, so a lot has changed in those 21 years. I mean, just forbid these things weren't around then. So, so the fact that so much has changed, you want to make sure that your vision for the next 8 to 10 years is actually reflective of those who live here now. So, again, it goes back into that proactive perspective. And the comprehensive plan, by its very name being comprehensive, looks at a lot of different aspects. Just a couple mentioned: land use, zoning, looks at different ways of being able to conserve land, to preserve land. Where do you want growth? Where do you want development? Where do you kind of want to balance all those different elements? All that's kind of included within the plan. Also within a comprehensive plan, which actually I'll get to I think in the next slide, it's not only the vision for where the community wants to grow, how it wants to grow and preserve, but there's also an action plan with it. How do you actually follow through and make things happen? Again, it's more that proactive approach to kind of addressing the future possibilities, opportunities within the town. As I kind of alluded to before, this is kind of the rough structure of what a comprehensive plan entails. The first part is usually the introduction. Why do you plan? What's the process? An overview of the public participation that takes place as part of it. Because again, the biggest thing with this is that this is a community-driven plan. So this is your guys' plans, this is your guys' thoughts that gets then put together, put into a vision, a series of goals, and an objective. This is not our plan of our ideas; it's your guys' plan. So we make sure that we have a lot of opportunities for public participation as part of it. So first part, probably 1 and 2, is the kind of what do you have to work with. We have in section 2 usually a community profile, community snapshot. Talk a little bit about the history of the town, what it is today, and then we start getting into some of the demographics, so the people that make up the town. And we also look at some of the physical resources that make up the town. And I've got a couple maps that'll kind of talk a little bit about that, but what roadways traverse the town, what kind of water features do you guys have, what kind of community assets do you guys have, schools and fire districts and land uses and all that stuff. So that's kind of our discovery phase of we try to find out as much as we possibly can about the town on our end of things, but then again goes back to that public participation. We find out just as much, if not more, from you guys, more about the town, and that's where that community snapshot comes into play. So again, 1 and 2 is kind of what do you have to work with. 3 and 4, number 3 is the vision for Boston. So that long-term grand idea for over the next 8 to 10 years, we want the town to be, I don't know, this is where we're going to kind of start to kind of pick into your guys' brains and use the survey and some other outreach methods to find out what is that long-term vision for how you guys want the community to be. That goes into the vision portion of it. And out of that, then we've got, are there like some core values that the town really values the most? That is built into there. From the grander vision, then it gets kind of structured down more into individual goals that then help to carry out the vision, and what are some measurable objectives that you can end up striving to or aim towards in order to carry out those goals and get to the vision. Everything kind of builds on everything else. So that's the 3 and 4 are the where do we want to be aspect of it. 5 is the how do we get there action plan. How do you take all the stuff that we've done and figure out how do we actually make things happen? What are some strategies? What are some action items? What are some recommendations? So this whole thing ends up being a roadmap, basically. And the key thing with it is that all this implements what's called smart growth, which is basically a balancing aspect of being able to develop your community, but balance that against what it is you value most, and could be the character, the rural aspects, the natural features of the town, that built-in natural environment. You kind of want to balance those two. So that's kind of the overarching perspective that we kind of work with when it comes to planning. So, just for a quick icebreaker, and just kind of get a rough idea of folks here. Quick question, just by show of hands, how many of you have lived in Boston for less than 5 years? How about 5 to 10 years? 10 or more years? Pretty much everybody. And how many live outside of Boston? Okay, so a lot of folks have been here for a long time. So this is, a simple question like that is kind of like a demographic snapshot to find out, what's the, what's the longevity and such of people who are in the community. So a couple slides here. Again, going back to that community snapshot, what do we have to work with? As far as the demographic overview, as far as population goes, the town of Boston compared to Erie County and the rest of New York State, still a pretty small town. It's got a population that's slightly going down, when compared to others. So, what is that? What does that end up showing us as far as trends? As far as is it a sustainable population, or does there need to be other things that need to be done to kind of bring in people to make it a little more sustainable? Age and age breakdown. I got a little bit more info on the next slide compared to this one, but besides the overall population, kind of diving down a little more into the numbers. What's the median age and what's the age breakdown of town? Common trend, as you can see on the left, compared to every other town, village, and city within New York State, is that it's an aging population. A little bit more so in the town of Boston compared to Erie County, New York State. Yes, there is an median age increase between 2010 and 2023, but we've got 2-year difference here, 2-year difference, and about 4-year difference here. So a little more of an aging population in the town. The chart on the right just kind of shows a rough breakdown as far as the child population, working age population, senior population, how that kind of breaks down further. But I'm not going to talk too much about that one as much as I'll talk about this one instead. Because this one gives a little bit more of a snapshot of really how the population age and population demographics are kind of shifting in the town. And these two are switched, so just kind of, this is 2021, this is 2010. We'll change that afterwards, but this is a quick one that we put up. But you can see though, between 2010 and 2021, which age ranges have kind of shrank a little bit and which have grown. So the bottom portion from about age 0 to 4 up to about 20 to 24, you could consider that, young children up to college-age kids. Those have shifted from, a lot lower. And probably from like the 30 to 34 up to maybe the 40 to 44, maybe this age range, you call that kind of the starting and mature families. See, that's kind of shifted down too. And what's ended up going up is when you talk about maybe, I guess you say more like the empty nesters, this row up here, maybe the 50 to 54 range, and then the seniors and above 60 to 64. That's taken off a lot. So going along with what you saw on the previous slide as far as that median age range that's gone up, you can see where things have shifted as far as the age breakdown goes. All these things, kind of tell a story as far as, what's trending in the town and what are the different things that now we need to start to look at over the next 8 to 10 years. We have to look at more, senior and affordable housing? Do we have to look at more community services? Do we have to look at more parks and rec? Do we have to look at other ways to try to entice maybe this younger crew in here to get more young families in order to support the younger kids, which has then a trickle effect down to the schools. So there's all these different things that we kind of look at when it comes to all this stuff. So we look at kind of the numbers and the trends and everything else, and combine that again with what we hear from folks in the community to kind of help to kind of get the brain going and kind of come up with some good ideas for that vision and for those goals.
And did you have any of that information for the surrounding towns?
We don't yet, but we will. So this is just a quick snapshot of a few things, but we are going to be including other info a little deeper than this, not only of the town itself, but then yes, how it compares to other Southtown communities and kind of how they're growing and such.
We are still very early in this process, yes?
Correct.
Oh, very.
Yes, very, very, very much so.
But I do want to say real
Yep.
quick, we've had monthly steering committee meetings, and that trend is not a surprise to me, given the conversations we've been having in the steering committee meetings. They've noted this already, so when that came through, it was more confirmation that what the steering committee is telling me is the population is shifting. Trends are changing.
Yeah, and again, this is not something that's out of the ordinary in Boston. It's not out of the ordinary in the Southtown or Erie County. It's honestly throughout New York State and probably throughout the Northeast, honestly. So you guys are kind of in the same boat. We've done comprehensive plans too for your neighbors to the east and west, Eden and Colden. So they've got very similar trends and traits as this too. So again, so yes, we will take long drawn-out answer to it is that yes, we are going to take a look at other towns and see how they compare to Boston. Housing was another thing that was brought up a couple times at the steering committee meeting too. And again, this just gives a really quick snapshot as far as housing units. How have the total number of housing units changed over the past 10 years or so? And what kind of housing units are they? Again, just for simple comparison between 2010 and 23, total number of housing units has actually has gone up, but at a lower rate compared to Erie County and New York State. So does that end up being a slower building trend? Why is that? Yeah, that could definitely be.
You're only talking a percent.
Yeah. So we're not
You're in the noise.
Yeah, it's not a whole lot, but again, it's one of those indicators of other aspects that we want to look at when it comes to housing. The other things that we'll look at, again, when it comes to other demographics, what's the median house range, median age, or the age breakdown? Do you have a lot of older homes? Do you have a lot of newer homes? And what things like that end up showing us is, if you have older homes, they may require more maintenance work, more code enforcement issues. So there may be more that needs to be done to those. And Maybe it's too big of a house and someone can't afford it because it's just too big of a house. On the flip side, are there more newer homes being built or are there not? So is there not a whole lot of development pressure or homes not affordable? Are they not big enough or is there not a variety? All these different things that we can kind of start to dive into the numbers to try to get some information out of it. Again, us using the numbers and the data and getting the input and kind of the real world feel from the community as part of these efforts. That's how we kind of bring those two aspects together as we move along to the process, because yes, we are very early in the process. So last little thought on this one. Housing unit type predominantly in the town is owner-occupied housing. Very much a smaller amount of renter units as compared to Erie County and to New York overall. All right, a couple maps I just want to show you real quick. This is just kind of an example of some of the maps that we're going to have within the plan. And again, these are all reference snapshots of what the town is kind of made up of. Existing land use is not zoning. This is just the use of the land according to property class and the tax assessor. This is, this changes. This could change year to year, showing what the different uses of land are. But again, in its very, very general sense, what it's basically showing us is that over half the land in terms of acreage is made up of residential lands. Now, whether or not those residential lands are smaller residential lots or more, rural lots that are like 10 acres or more, it encompasses all of that. Vacant land, that's the second highest land use, just under 20%. Again, this is a snapshot. This is actually a discussion that I was having with Brennan earlier, is that this, even though it shows as vacant land, it may not be 100% true because, for instance, I think I pointed out this parcel land here too. And I just randomly picked a parcel of land for an example. That may be classified as vacant, but maybe that's an agricultural land that's just not farmed this year. The farmers are letting it go fallow. So it's technically vacant land, but it's actually agricultural land, just not in production, or maybe it's a tree farm. So it could be anything. Looking at other maps tells you the bigger story of what those land uses are. And actually looking at other maps, this was in an agricultural district, so it probably is one of those random examples that I just came up with. But again, from a snapshot aspect of it, it gives a general idea of what the makeup of the community is. Mainly residential, a lot of vacant lands, could be something different, and a good amount of agricultural lands. The other thing that's kind of interesting about this is that because it's a lot of agricultural lands, a lot of residential lands, and not a lot in terms of commercial, recreation, entertainment, and industrial, what does some of that then tell us then? It's probably saying that a lot of the tax burden is on the residential uses as opposed to commercial and industrial uses. So is there a way to balance that out? Maybe, don't know. Again, this is part of the process that we kind of talk about and just kind of bring up the ideas and talk about the community and see where it goes. Transportation points of interest, I won't go into details, but generally you got two main corridors that go through the town between 219 and Boston State Road. Obviously with 219, you got two interchanges, which then also not only brings traffic up and down, but now you got two areas where there's a lot of on-off traffic, potential areas for development, things to kind of keep in mind. And some of the different points of interest that we have noted on here between the schools, the fire companies, town halls, some of the parks and whatnot. We may not have everything on here as far as what the actual points of interest are in the town. All these maps are in draft, so when we do our breakout sessions, we invite you guys to give your comments, give your feedbacks, help us mark them up. There probably are a lot more things on here that we don't have, so help us to kind of connect those dots and really identify what your guys' assets are. Again, like I had mentioned before, as far as agricultural uses go, this is just a simple ag map that shows in that darker green where all the cultivated cropland is, according to aerial imagery, where the different agricultural districts, not a zoning district, but a county agricultural district, which really quickly, it just is a level of protection for farms. You can see that we got two different areas that are kind of hatched, a little tough to see, but we've got district, I think this is probably 8, and this is district 15 over here. And again, like that property that I kind of mentioned that was set vacant, well, it's within the ag district, so it could be a tree farm or something else. Again, there may be other farms that are on here that we don't have noted, so let us know. Ag is something that doesn't necessarily have to be, this was a long discussion that we had in the town of Colden. Ag doesn't necessarily have to be, field crops and corn and soybeans and wheat and all that stuff. It can be smaller agricultural pursuits. It could be fruit farms. It could be equestrian or a horse barn. It could be an apiary or an aviary or all of the greenhouses. Agricultural is what you guys basically feel agricultural is in the town. So whether it's small or large, it could all be encompassed in here. Okay, so again, that's just a brief snapshot of the what do we have to work with between the demographics and the mapping. As far as our overall timeline goes, as we mentioned, we're still way here at the beginning. We just kicked it off June? Okay. And so now we're in the inventory, kind of that discovery phase. Even though it's kind of broken up evenly across the board, most of the time actually is going to be spent in this inventory phase, so really it's kind of a little more like this. And the reason why is, again, we want to find out as much as we can from the community. So between this public meeting, a couple different stakeholder meetings that we're going to have, the online survey, community events that we're going to be at, those are all things that we're going to focus in on here.
What are the stakeholder meetings?
What's that?
What's a stakeholder meeting?
I will get to that in a second, actually. So as we work through it, we're going to go through the different sections, and the plan is to, by May 2024, have a final plan that will be put before the town board for adoption. So as far as communication and the outreach aspect of it, there's those 3 opportunities for community feedback or the public meetings. Early on, which is what we're doing now, getting input, get some more intimate knowledge of the community. Halfway through, just kind of get a checkup with the community, just to make sure, are we on the right track? Did we miss anything? Here's what we heard so far. And then when we get to the draft plan, present that and say, did we nail it? Hopefully we get something on the left, not on the right. As far as other methods of outreach, we have been doing in-person meetings. There is the opportunity to do some hybrid or some virtual meetings, depending on people's schedule and whatnot. We have been looking at community events. If anyone has been out to any of the concert series, we have had our flyers out there, and so we've been advertising that way to
Thanks, John and Frank.
Yes, thank you very, very much. So we've been doing what we can to try to get folks aware of things. And so we are going to hopefully be at some other community events as well. I know there's Oktoberfest, and I think the LEAP event is coming up that we're going to try to be at that one too. Stakeholder meetings, like I mentioned, what those are is stakeholder meetings, or I guess focus group meetings is maybe a little bit better way to put them. We have, I believe, 3 to have potentially planned. Besides talking to folks here, we also want to try to talk to the youth. So one of the things that we have kind of in our scope of work is to go to the school and see if we can get in on one of the government classes or anything else like that. Give kind of a a boiled down version of this presentation and get some youth feedback into the mix as well. What that does, it gives a different perspective on this whole process. And the other aspect of it too is that if you get the youth's input, what you end up doing is then you end up figuring out, okay, well, if we have what the youth are looking for, families are looking for that same aspect of things for their kids. So you plan for the youth, you plan for the families to draw on the families to help, you know, kind of even out that population breakdown. So there is a method behind the madness to kind of reaching out to the kids on it. Two other focus group meetings that I think we are talking about, potentially one with the business owners, and then possibly to the seniors, or again, depending on what are the hot topics that we uncover through the dialogue with all of you folks. You know, do we have to have like a parks and open space or recreation focus group meeting, something like that. So we have at least the youth definitely planned, and then opportunities for two other ones that might encompass any one of those.
As well as agriculture, we may.
Agriculture, yes, thank you.
As well.
And then of course we have the online survey that we've been pushing, and we have that out and active, and I think right now we've got
We have 72 online.
72.
We have many more in paper form that have yet to be scanned in, which is great. We do have, of course, the opportunity, if you haven't already, I'm sure that you've been asked when you walked in if you did the survey, but we do have the opportunity. But with that also comes the opportunity to leave feedback in other ways on our project website. So if you are not, if you took the paper survey and you still want to be able to, you know, find out just a little bit more or give a little more feedback that you don't do today, feel free to visit the website. It's going to be, well, all over. We have new flyers coming out soon as well, so you'll be finding flyers, and if you have any questions, always come to Town Hall, right, Jason?
That's right. Yeah, and I did drop that my business card on the table, so if anyone needs to know how to get a hold of me, I did drop my business cards there. Please feel free to take one, share them with the community. Because again, that, you know, Justin and Brennan said it best. You know, this is a community project. It's not a town board project. So we value that feedback, and you know, please reach out to us. Just you know, so we did do a tally on the paper surveys so far. We're over 40 of those. And the fact that this is our first public meeting and that's the kind of feedback that we're getting is huge. I mean, I don't know. I won't.
Just to let you know, we're planning on running this through fall. So there's a lot of opportunity for people to take this. And again, we're going to be reaching out to different groups and demographics to assure that everyone is really aware that this is going on so that we can get that feedback. You know, just real quick to note on, you know, going to the school for, you know, it's an interesting one here because it's schools, right? So we're definitely going to be trying to meet people where they're at though, and hopefully, you know, if any questions arise, you feel comfortable enough to come up to any one of us. And if you're on the steering committee, can you raise your hand? So there's a great amount of people in this room also who have been actively involved even up until this point at this early stage of the process. So, you know, don't be shy.
So, and with that, I know, do you want to
Yeah,
get everyone going to the breakout sessions?
on that note, you know, here are just some questions that we're going to be breaking out. We want to spend the rest of the time at these breakout sessions. So some questions to think about are what are the issues, what are some strengths, and what are the opportunities. So what we do is we have two maps at each table, and we'll have Jason's going to be over here with the infrastructure and the transportation. Over here with me, we're going to have the agriculture and parks and recreation maps, and then over here we have the land use and zoning, which, as Justin mentioned, are two separate things, but he'll be there to help guide you as well. And the steering committee members are here if you have questions or need help at all as well. So I do implore you to visit each table. They all have different focuses, and it's kind of, I'm gonna, you know, say, you know, move with the cycle of traffic cycle, I guess you could say, but feel free to visit each one at any point. There's also a board if you just have general comments. Feel free to